I definitely think there's scope for introducing new revenue sources, particularly precipitated by this shift in the electricity business, because electricity revenues were a lifeblood for municipalities, and that's coming under pressure. I think we need to be careful, though, of pouring more money into a system that's not collecting the revenues currently due. So, the, any new revenue stream, we need to be very careful around adverse incentives related to that. So, they're kind of two issues. The first thing is new revenue sources, and the other thing is potentially new services or new ways of providing services. So, if we just look at revenue sources, there has been a debate around this for a good long while in municipalities, and there have been several projects done looking at alternative revenue sources for municipalities, and there's a whole long list of things that have been looked at, things like property transfer duties related to local property markets, fuel levies for local roads, increasing vehicle license fees, public transport permits, tourism or hotel occupancy taxes. The list goes on and on. One of the alternative revenue streams that got a lot of attention, it was a local business tax. eThekwini put forward a proposal for a local business tax about 10 years ago and got quite far through the process, but it was ultimately rejected by National Treasury because they pointed at that time to slow economic growth, making the introduction of a new tax unappealing, and as well as the fact that municipalities weren't maximizing their existing revenue sources. So some of that is still valid. I think introducing any new tax, any new tariff, any new levy in a difficult economic environment is very unpopular. But, shifts in the overall funding of municipalities mean that this should possibly be considered. And National Treasury is certainly doing some work on some of these alternative revenue streams. You mentioning things like the possibility of changes in services. And I think that some of the higher capacity municipalities are thinking about that. What might the electricity service of the future look like if the municipality just effectively has some distribution infrastructure and receives electricity from a whole lot of sources, feeds it through the grid and sends it out to other people? What does that look like? And what would be the revenue streams associated with that? Certainly some municipalities are pursuing the idea of fiber or data. Increasingly that's becoming another infrastructure service, and there may be a role for municipalities in providing data services in their municipal areas, and all of these may have revenue streams. But they need to be explored very carefully, because it's very dangerous to look at this as a lovely new revenue stream without thinking carefully about the costs that will be required to run a new service, for example. And I think increasingly what we're seeing is a need to pilot some of these things. South Africa is very slow in introducing new things. The regulatory environment is strong and solid, but it can be quite onerous. And I think some of the ideas of these new revenue streams, to pilot them in stable, administratively mature municipalities, is starting to look like a good idea. So let's test some of these things for a few years, see how they go before we go and try and roll something out as a blanket across the country.